I live in a world of threes. I see things in threes. Everyone has a good side, a dark side, and their true self, which is the balance in between. And today I'm going to talk about the person who inspired my dark side, good old Mr. George Carlin. I think I'm credible for George Carlin because right when the whole Napster craze was coming out, that's all I downloaded. I didn't download a single song. It was George Carlin stand-up. I had memorized about 3 days worth of George Carlin, so I could just spout it off whenever I felt like it. If you ever get interested in seeing a stand-up, YouTube's a great place. He also has 3 best-selling books. He's been on 14 HBO specials. He has 4 Grammy Awards and 5 Emmy nominations and multiple gold records. But we see with our celebrities and our politicians that we tend to forget their humble beginnings. We deify them. So I'm not going to really talk about George Carlin's stand-up and his comedy legend and everything. I'm going to do my best to bring back that humble beginnings. It doesn't really happen here in the speech class if we're all doing biography speeches and we all talk about the humble beginnings and the rise to power and everything. George Carlin was born in 1937 during the Great Depression in Harlem, New York. Never knew his father. His mother ran away with him and his siblings when he was still an infant. He claims they escaped out the window and down the fire escape. His father was an alcoholic and he died without George ever meeting him. But George was an amazing father. He had 1 marriage. His wife died before him, but it's his only marriage. He wasn't a womanizer or anything. He had 1 daughter and was a very adamant father, even though he was the most controversial, foul-mouthed comedian you'll ever hear. Like many Americans, what he started doing, he changed that. What he did for the first few years of his life wasn't really what worked out for him. He dropped out of school when he was 16, and he joined the Air Force when he was 18. It was court-martialed 2 years later. But the court-martial was one of the best things that ever happened to him because 3 months after it, he went right into a DJ job, and he started working in radio in Louisiana, and he got 3 or 4 radio jobs around that time, the early to mid 1950s, and some of them worked out, some of them didn't. He was fired from the Boston radio station for driving up to New York in the radio van to buy pot, and but that wasn't all bad. In the 1960s, it really started looking up for him. He was currently living in Texas, and he teamed up with a radio buddy by the name of Jack Burns, and they left Texas and moved to Hollywood, signing a 3-month radio deal as a morning radio team, Carlin and Burns. And after that 3-month deal was over, they stopped doing radio altogether and focused mainly on their stand-up. And living in Hollywood, that was a great place to do it. Radio and stand-up were his only attributes. He also did a lot of acting. He liked Kevin Smith movies. He does a lot of cameos in Kevin Smith movies. His first acting was in 1965 as one of his more famous characters, the Indian Sergeant. It was on the Merv Griffin show. I don't know who Merv Griffin is, but it sounds interesting. His first solo album was recorded in 1966. It receives a Grammy nomination. It was recorded at the Rooster Tail in Detroit, and it didn't go gold, but his second album and the one after that went gold. His second album was FM AM, recorded in 1971. He also hit it big. He hosted the first Saturday Night Live in 1975. He had a total of 14 HBO specials. My little super books here said he only had 13, but that blaspheming Wikipedia confirmed that it was 14. Let's see what else. If you ever watched the Bill and Ted's. He was, God, what's his name? He was the future guy who gave him the phone booth. I can never remember his name, but he starred in both Bill and Ted's. His biggest acting role was in Jersey Girl. He played Ben Affleck's father, and that was his most serious acting role because he didn't really like acting. It wasn't for him. But we saw the humble beginnings of a legend. He had a very unique perspective as a white man growing up in Harlem, New York during the Great Depression. He uses that a lot in his stand-up. He taught me to laugh at everything, like even the most, depressing things out there. I have a sick sense of humor now. I can just laugh it off. Even if it happens to me, I just laugh it off. He put 1,000 smiles on 1,000 faces. Everyone who hears his stand-up, even if they're offended, they can't help but laugh at it. The most important thing he taught me was to harness my rage and anger. He was a very hateful, angry person because of his life, and he was very socially political with his stand-up. He was a proud American, but he really, really did not like the direction America was going. He was very liberal, which isn't that great for this state. But in closing, I want to do one of my favorite George Carlin lines. Mickey Mouse's birthday being announced on the news as if it's an actual event. No wonder no one takes our country seriously. We spend valuable news time informing our citizens of the age of an imaginary rodent.